Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We've got a really quick update from our friend Mark S. Mann. And guys, before we get started here with Mark, I just want to read this piece of news. People have probably already heard about this. Mark, I've long suspected, and I hate to even say it because I don't want it to be true, I think there may be hit teams operating within the continental United States. I hope I'm wrong, but if you take all of the dead bankers and you take this long list of mysterious, unexpected deaths that are always labeled suicides, like the Gray State Director, I just want to read this. Missouri auditor Governor Hopeful dies of apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Quote, over the past year, there have been a perplexing spike in suicide events involving bankers, especially those of Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan. Overnight, the first prominent public sector suicide shook the state of Missouri when its state auditor, Tom Schweich, died in St. Louis in what is said to be an apparent suicide. The police chief was quoted by KansasCity.com as saying, what we know at this point suggests an apparent suicide. If you were going to run for state office, if you were an auditor of a state, if you had a career and wanted to do some good things on behalf of the people, would you kill yourself, Mark?
Well, I think the question of do people kill themselves or would you kill yourself is a valid question. But I think what's even more valid and legitimate is how is it done? Meaning, if you've committed suicide by shooting yourself in the back of the head with a nail gun 8 times, uh, that kind of begs other questions at that point. And offline we were talking about if anybody ever had wondered if this stuff is happening for real and it's not a quote unquote conspiracy theory. Look at all the bodies that are tied to Bill and Hillary Clinton, the long list of people that have not only mysteriously died, but under the circumstances that they have died in committing suicide and the way that they have been found, in the way that they have chosen supposedly to end their own lives. Very, very suspicious, very questionable circumstances, to say the least.
Yeah, and the reason for this call was not to talk about that, but we do keep an eye on all of this type of news. What we wanted to talk about in this call, though, was this news that's being disseminated in the alt media, Mark, about Obama banning ammo for the most popular rifle in America. I want to talk about this specifically because I know that you have a different take. First of all, it's not just Obama, it's the ATF, and it's not all ammo for the AR-15. It's this one specific subsection of ammo. So why don't you frame this up for us, Mark, and let's talk about what's really going on here with this ammo ban.
Sure. First, I want to say that I didn't make this call to you and want to have this discussion based on any one particular piece that I read. As a matter of fact, just today alone, we're recording this on the 27th, and just in this morning alone, okay, I've seen 4 pieces in the mainstream media, both on Yahoo News, on the Comcast Homes page. There was a few pieces on InfoWars about this, and there's a lot of talk about this both in the alt media and the mainstream media, and there's a lot of misinformation. So basically, we're going to clarify that and clear everything up.
Okay, yeah, and now just to be clear, there is some AR-15 ammunition that apparently is being banned, but I think you'd make the point that this is the ATF's doing and not Barack Obama specifically. So let's talk about it. What exactly is going on, and does this mean the end to the AR-15 because there's no other ammunition available?
Absolutely not.
Okay, help us frame this up and understand exactly what's going on.
Well, basically, the ATF has had certain rulings in place for a long time regarding what they classify or how they classify armor-piercing or light armor-piercing ammunition. There are certain people that say that those standings and those rulings have been in place since the late 60s. I don't know about that, but the bottom line is this. The ATF, for at least the last 10 or 15 years minimum, has said if the firearms industry produces a pistol that is capable of shooting a caliber that fires armor-piercing or light armor-piercing ammunition, they would ban the sale, importation, and manufacture of that ammo to the general public. okay? And without getting too technical, without going too far off into the weeds, and without dissecting everything, we've already seen this happen last year when the ATF banned the importation of Russian 5.45 by 39 N76 ammunition. Okay, that ammunition was very similar to the ammunition that is in question now, which is the M855 5.56 millimeter round. Okay, and what happened there, Sean, was the ATF always said if anyone makes an AK pistol in 5.45 by 39, we're going to ban the importation of that ammo. So it was kind of like an unwritten rule that manufacturers in the industry that produce AK firearms, AK pattern firearms, they all kind of had an understanding where, hey, let's not do that because we don't want to mess with the availability and importation of that ammo. There was a lot of very inexpensive, good quality Russian ammo coming in that caliber, Russian surplus ammunition. And what happened was nobody thought it was worth it to make an AK pistol to upset the apple cart with the importation and availability of that ammo to the U.S. consumer market. Well, it just so happened that some idiot that had a custom shop that was, a boutique manufacturer of AK pattern firearms came up with a 5.45 by 39 AK pistol and marketed it, and ATF immediately pounced on it and said, okay, that's it, no more ammo.
Right.
So we see where this has happened before. This is nothing new, and there is precedent established here where that has happened before. Okay, now what has happened, and a lot of the SGT listeners and people on YouTube who are real gun savvy will understand this as well. Over the last several years, the firearms industry in the United States has been making a lot of AR-15 pistols, okay? And what that is basically an AR-15 rifle without a stock, without a butt stock, and a short barrel, less than 16 inches, okay? When those things started to be produced, they got pretty popular. And basically what that is a loophole. It's a legal loophole. An AR-15 pistol is a legal loophole where you are in effect almost having a short barrel rifle, which would normally require a $200 tax stamp and is an NFA item. Okay. Another thing that's become very popular is a product that was put out by SIG, which is a stabilization brace, which people have added to AR-15 pistols, which almost gives you a butt stock on the gun, which is another legal loophole, which as of very recently, the ATF has reversed its decision on that. Okay, so what the firearms industry has done is created a class of pistol slash rifle that is now capable of firing this ammunition. Okay, the ATF didn't like that, and it took a while for this to catch up to the industry, but they finally acted on it the same way they did with the Russian ammunition. They're doing the same thing as they did last year. And they're using the same logic as they did last year. And this is why everyone's getting lost in the weeds and saying this is Obama. No.
Okay.
ATF has done this before.
Okay.
They did this less than a year ago for the same exact reasons.
Well, Mark, let me just jump in, though, for clarification, because, again, if we go back to the Michael Snyder article, it reads, quote, as promised, President Obama is using executive actions to impose gun control on the nation, targeting the top-selling rifle in the country, the AR-15 style semi-automatic, with a ban on one of the most used AR bullets by sportsmen and target shooters. It goes on to say, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives this month revealed that it is proposing to put the ban on 5.56 ammo on a fast track, immediately driving up the price of the bullets and prompting retailers, including the huge outdoors company Cabela's, to urge sportsmen to urge Congress to stop the president. What is wrong about that phrase? What is wrong about that take?
What's wrong about it is it's not targeting 5.56 ammunition specifically. It is targeting a specific round of 5.56 ammunition that uses a very distinct projectile, okay, which is the M855 or SS109 round. It is a 62 grain round with a steel penetrator in the core. It is not a lead core projectile. It has got a steel core, which is considered to be a light armor piercing round.
Okay, so just to be clear, it's not all 5.56 millimeter ammo for the AR-15. It's just this certain type.
It's this particular round has come into question because of the popularity and the amount of firearms that are being produced in the AR-15 class as pistols, okay? That's why this is happening. The ATF has always had a ruling in place where they've said if ammunition that can be classified as armor piercing or light armor piercing can be fired from a handgun, we are not going to allow the sale of that type of ammunition in the consumer market.
Got it. Okay, so this is very important. The reason we're having this call is to clarify, because it's very easy when we see the FCC passing net neutrality 3-2. Will our neutered Congress stand up for a real free internet? Because again, like the Patriot Act, they use these terms in an inverse relationship to truth. So net neutrality does not mean a free and open internet when it was written by big corporations. I think all of us are getting a little jumpy when we see things like this, and it's easy to jump on the bandwagon and say the ATF is going after 5.56 ammo. And we just want to cut to the absolute core of the truth here. So this article, which says Obama is doing this specifically, your argument is that it's really the ATF, but you're no fan of Obama either, correct?
No, well, the thing is, Sean, it's not just this article. There's multiple sources that are saying it's Obama. You know, I'm not a fan of Obama, but I'm also not a fan of the ATF. The ATF has done this type of nonsense regardless of which administration is in place or in political power in the United States. Whether we have a Republican administration, a Democratic administration, a pro-gun administration, the ATF's agenda remains the same, which is to give the firearms owners in the United States, the Second Amendment people in the United States, death by 1,000 paper cuts. The incremental gun confiscation here in a million small little pinpricks at a time. Okay, that's what's happening here. They're not saying we're going to take away all 5.56 ammunition. They're basically using a loophole to ban a certain type of ammunition. Okay, by projectile, not by caliber. Okay,
Right.
and the truth is the majority, the most popular 5.56/223 ammunition in the civilian market is 55 grain. It's not 62 grain. 62 grain is popular, but it doesn't constitute the majority of the amount of ammunition that's available to civilians. Okay. Now I want to say a few things here on a technical basis to kind of ease people's minds a little bit and to get people to really think about what's going on here. Okay. The truth is that the ammunition that the ATF is looking to ban was kind of dropped by the U.S. military a few years ago for its ineffectiveness in actually its stopping power. The round is a 62 grain steel penetrator round, and it does very poorly on tissue. And what happens with this round is it basically just punches right through the target, and it doesn't really, the bullet doesn't fragment, it doesn't yaw, it doesn't create a large wound channel. So it's not as effective as a lot of the other available projectiles that are in the 5.56 millimeter family. The U.S. military has since adopted the M855A1 round, which is an improved version, and there's also 3 other different rounds that the U.S. military is using that are more effective since they've dropped the M855 round. What people should understand about this is, for sporting purposes, it does serve certain the round that they're looking to ban does serve certain purposes. It's more accurate than some of the rounds that are out there. But the truth of the matter is, if you're looking for stopping power, if you're looking for the best effectiveness, the best efficiency you can get ballistically, it's not that round anyway.
Right.
Do I think that they should be using this, banning this? Am I in agreement with the fact that they're doing this? No, not at all. But is this going to cause a disruption in the supply chain for 5.56 ammo? It's going to reduce your choices by one type of bullet and ammunition.
All right.
And that's all that's going to happen here. Am I saying that it's not going to have a negative effect? No, it may have a negative effect, but this has nothing to do with the UN gun treaty. This has nothing to do with Obama. This is the ATF playing tit for tat with the U.S. firearms industry in a loophole that they created, and a loophole that the firearms industry has failed to properly deal with in their own accord.
All right. Well, I'm glad we had this conversation because you said that the ATF is really giving us a death by 1,000 paper cuts, and I think that is the bottom line. People are upset about the fact that, when they target any ammunition for any reason, it is a reason for people to tune in and get angry because, it's a slippery slope into tyranny, as we've talked about so often, Mark.
Yeah, and I agree. I just think that in the alternative media, we need to be held to a higher standard than these mockingbirds. And when we talk about stuff like this, there's got to be a little bit more fact-finding, and people have to understand what's really going on rather than just throwing out accusations and saying it's this or that. What I think is more important, Sean, is what can people do about this, okay? And, the whole thing about calling your congressman and all that stuff, that's everybody knows it's a waste of time. Those people don't care and they don't listen. And the ATF is basically a self-regulating agency. They're above the oversight of a lot of these congressional inquiries and stuff like that. We see that that's the truth when somebody like Eric Holder is held in contempt of Congress and there's no consequences to him. So these people are operating without any oversight whatsoever. What I think is really more important is what people do in terms of how they vote with their dollars. And the way that you can combat something like this, in my opinion, is if all of the firearms owners in the United States decided to not support firearms manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers that do business with certain government entities, maybe things would be different. If the general public at large got together and said, hey, if you support the ATF, if you sell firearms and ammunition and equipment to the ATF, we are not going to give you our business. And I guarantee you that the dollars that are represented on a consumer basis by the American public far outweigh how lucrative any government contract would be for any particular agency. So that's what people need to do. They need to tell their dealers. They need to, when they go to places like the NRA show, when they go to places like SHOT Show, when they go to a consumer trade show where these manufacturers are located, they need to say, hey, I'm not going to buy your products anymore if you sell to government agencies which destroy my rights to own your product. That's what people need to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's the same thing people need to do as it pertains to GMO food. It's the same thing people need to do as it pertains to pharmaceuticals. It's the same. We need to take back our power with our own personal pocketbooks. Do business with those who are honorable and don't do business with those who are not honorable. And I think that really sums it up. The bottom line, I think, as it pertains to the ATF, Mark, is that if you take a look at what happened at Waco, if you take a look at what happened at Ruby Ridge, if you take a look at what's been happening for so long with the ATF as they expand their power and expand their iron-fisted grip over ammo, gun sales, and now explosives, that really is the agency to keep an eye on. And your point on this call was that, yeah, Obama's not a good guy, but in this case, it's the ATF that's responsible for what's happening here.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in for this quick call and update with our friend Mark S. Mann, an expert in the firearms industry. Mark, thanks so much for reaching out, and thanks for taking the time to do this call.
It's good to be with you, Sean.
Good to be with you. Guys, have a great weekend ahead, and thanks for visiting us at sgtreport.com. Bye-bye.